I wash the dead for a living. I wash dead people for a living. That is what I do. Not many people know it. Even fewer respect it. In my line of work, you learn quickly that the living are more cruel than the dead. Corpses don't judge you. People do. I work at a government mortuary, in a quiet part of town, one of those places people pass quickly without breathing too deeply, without looking back. The kind of place mothers warn their children about. I am 34 years old, unmarried, childless, alone. Not because I didn't want a family, but because life chose something else for me. Every morning, I tie my wrapper tight, cover my hair, and prepare bodies that once had names, dreams, lovers and regrets. I clean blood that no apology can undo. I straighten limbs that will never move again. I whisper small prayers for people no one is praying for anymore. Death has a smell. Once it enters your nose, it never truly leaves. I thought I had seen everything, until the night I saw my own name. It was a Tuesday. Power had gone out as usual. The generator was humming, the air thick with formalin. A police van arrived late, too late. Inside were two bodies covered with black nylon. One was a young man. The other was a woman, unknown female. Late 20s or early 30s. No ID. As I reached for the clipboard, my eyes landed on the temporary tag attached to her toe. I froze, because written in red marker were the words, name, Ifnanyanya Okuri. My name. My knees gave way. I had to sit on the cold floor before I fainted. At first, I laughed a dry, broken laugh. People share names all the time. I told myself not to be stupid. But then I pulled back the nylon, and I saw my face. Not exactly, but close enough to steal my breath. Same tribal marks my grandmother insisted on. Same small gap between the front teeth. Same scar above the left eyebrow, the one I got when I was 7. I touched my own face, then hers. My hands were shaking. This woman looked like me the way memory looks like truth. I checked the date of death. 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I was very much alive. I spent that night in the mortuary, sitting beside her body, asking questions no one could answer. The police report said she died in a fire, a domestic fire. No next of kin came forward. But here is the part that broke me. Inside her pocket was a crumpled hospital card from a private clinic. Under next of kin was a name I hadn't heard in over 20 years. My mother, who I buried when I was 10, or so I thought. I did not sleep for 3 days. On the 4th day, I went to the address on the hospital card. It led me to a small compound in another state. 1 room. Rusted zinc. Silence. An old woman sat outside, roasting corn. When I asked her about the woman who lived there, she stared at me for a long time before speaking. "You look like her," she said softly. That was when the truth began to unfold. The woman in the mortuary was not a stranger. She was my twin sister, a sister I never knew existed. After my father died, my mother fell into madness and poverty. She couldn't take care of both of us, so she gave one of us away. She kept me and abandoned the other. That other child grew up angry, bitter, invisible. She moved from place to place, carrying a life that was never chosen. And 2 days ago, she died in a fire alone. While I washed the dead for a living, while I complained about loneliness, while I believed I had suffered the most. That night, I went back to the mortuary and sat beside her body until morning. I apologized to a sister who never got the chance to hate me properly. I cried for a life that ran parallel to mine but never crossed paths. I buried her with dignity. I used my own money. I carved both our names on the tombstone, because if the world only made space for one of us, I would not let death do the same. Since then, I no longer fear death, but I fear something worse. How many lives are quietly erased while others complain they are alone? I still wash the dead, but every time I do, I remember. I could have been the one on the table. I cried for a life that ran parallel to mine but never crossed paths. I buried her with dignity. I used my own money. I carved both our names on the tombstone, because if the world only made space for one of us, I would not let death do the same. Since then, I no longer fear death, but I fear something worse. How many lives are quietly erased while others complain they are alone? I still wash the dead, but every time I do, I remember. I could have been the one on the table, and no one would have known my story either. Please subscribe, like and subscribe.